I mean, here we go. I feel like there's going to be some people who don't take that joke very well. So this is going to be the video podcast that we talk about these Sapphire IV pumps. You guys have probably seen on our social media that we've been testing these things out, and I wanted to put together some of that information in a quick video. But if you want the real, like, low-down, nitty-gritty details, go and see the blog because I'm going to go into a lot more detail there. So the first thing that we looked at was accuracy testing. This has been like a big point in the market lately, and I'm sure everybody's heard about some recalls being performed on other pumps. And so that was like the very first thing that I wanted to do with this thing was just first of all check out, how accurate is it. And so I put together 3 little tests here. I got some graduated cylinders together, and I just wanted to see how accurate is this thing. You'll see in the blog I did this whole thing with weighing the fluid and this whole system of it. But the first test was 250 at 999, so I maxed out the rate and I wanted to see how accurate is it. The next one was a simple 100 ml bolus over 10 minutes, and then the last one that I did was 37 mLs an hour, just to kind of replicate what you'd maybe be running like your average pressor at, or maybe like an average sedation infusion or something like that. So kind of like a high rate, middle of the road, and then like a very low rate. And so that very first one that we did was at 250 over, basically at 999. So it ran that in at about, 15 minutes or so. So when we did this, I put it into this graduated cylinder over here, and our actual volume infused is between 259 and 261, which was verified by weight. And so that was an average deviation there of approximately 4%, which is really good for having that rate that high. There's always going to be a kind of a standard deviation of error when it comes to having those really high flow rates like that. And so that performed really well. The secondary test that we performed was that 100 mLs over 10 minutes, and this one was very, very accurate. And so every single time that I performed this, what I would do is I would take one pump and I'd do it twice. I'd grab the other pump and I would do it twice, and I would see if the results are accurate or consistent. And every single time it was dead on. And so there was 0% error every single time I did this 100 ml bolus over 10 minutes at 600 mLs per hour. The third one was a little bit different. So I did 3 versions of this, and I tested them multiple times. So this is with that 37 mLs. So for this requires a little bit of explanation. So these pumps not require, but they count on that your IV bag is 20 inches above the actual pump. And so that's for optimal performance. That's the most accurate you're going to get stuff. So what I did it under optimal conditions, and it was dead on. I mean, 0% error, with the 37. And then what I did was I took it, kind of suboptimal, but we can see this happening frequently, like where the bag is at the same level as the pump. Maybe if you get all of your air out of your bag, sometimes you do this. And it did really well. Remember, this is over the course of an hour. So it didn't lose or gain any volume over the course of an hour with this infusion. And so there was a 0% error there. And then I came over here and I said, okay, what if it's really jacked up and we have the bag like way below? So I did the bag 20 inches below the pump, so that it constantly had to pump the fluid up from the bag. So it's overcoming gravity every time. And that gave me about 36 mLs. I could only get down to the gram here. And so about 36 mL. So maybe at the most a 2% error there, which did really good for, suboptimal conditions. So the accuracy was really good. I was really impressed with this thing. It does have, that 4%, but that's well within the standards that you need for that very fast infusion bolus rate. So I was very impressed by the accuracy, and no matter how many times I performed these tests, it was very consistent throughout all of them with both pumps. So that gave me some reassurance about the accuracy of the pumps. So the next thing that I looked at was like, okay, I'm like, these things are, they're accurate. How long do they actually last though? So let's take a look at the battery life. So I devised a little test here, and what I wanted to do was I took a half set and I plugged it into itself. So I took the half set, I put it in here, I primed it with a bunch of fluid, make sure there was like no air or anything in there. And then I plugged it into itself so that it would just continuously pump around in a circle so that I didn't have to keep refilling the fluid. Then I took the pump and I set it to, I'm like, what's kind of a higher, what's like the very top end you'd be running an infusion at for a long time? Like maybe it's like 750 or something. So I took 750, I took one, I made it at room temperature, 70 degrees. And then I took this other one and I stuck it in the fridge, and I turned my fridge all the way to the coldest setting. Coldest setting, it got it down to like 31 degrees Fahrenheit. So, because that can affect the battery life, right? The colder it is, it's going to go through that battery life a little bit quicker. You've probably noticed that with the batteries like in your cell phone and stuff. And I wanted to keep it nice and cold. So how did they actually do? So the room temperature one, 70 degrees, went about 16 hours at 750 mLs per hour. The one that was sitting in the fridge, as predicted, as you got to figure it's in a really cold environment, that battery's not going to last as long, went about 11 hours. I wasn't keeping a close eye on these things. They give you a battery warning when they're about 30 minutes from the end of the battery life cycle. And I found that to be pretty accurate, because you know how sometimes, like, I don't know, your gas light goes on in your car or something, and it's like, well, I might be able to push it. I've found that when it says 30 minutes left, all things being equal, the same flow rate, the same temperature and stuff like that, it seems like that 30 minutes is pretty dead on. So if you see that, I would listen to that and trust that it is about 30 minutes. So the other thing that I was wondering is, now I've got this warm pump, I've got the cold pump. Is the screen refresh rate going to be different? All right, so I just took this one out of the fridge. So this has been sitting in about 31 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures for coming on 3 hours now, I believe, a little bit less. And then this one is warm. This one has not been in the fridge. And so what I want to see is, does the screen work okay on here even when it's like literally freezing cold? Is the refresh rate different? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click them both at the same time, and then I'll slow down the video and we'll be able to see, is one faster than the other. So here we go. Initially, I don't think there's too much of a difference there. So a little bit more on the battery life. I was talking to Brian King, and his service uses these. And I'm like, how often do you guys actually charge these things in real life? Because you're out there using them on calls day in, day out. I'm like, do you keep them on chargers all the time? What do you do? He's like, no, we don't even keep these things on chargers. What we do is we take them, we throw them in a bag, and he's like, we can use them. The different crews, come through, use them for probably about a week. And then we throw them on the charger intermittently as we need to. And so in a practical sense, these things are, capable of holding a charge for a long time, even off of the charger. And then they can be used for extended periods of time, even after they've been off the charger for a while. When I started doing this battery testing, I had all these different plans for really torture testing these batteries and stuff. And after I started doing them, it took such a long time to get them to deplete the battery. I'm like, this really isn't even worth it to do any more further battery testing. And then as the more people that I would talk to that actually use them, they're like, oh yeah, the battery, you barely even ever think about it. So that was reassuring that the battery life is very good on these. Another thing that's a little bit different about these pumps is that they have a pressure screen. And so it's not like the screen on your iPad or your iPhone or whatever, where if you've ever got some moisture on the front of your phone or something, like let's say you're texting in the shower, and which I do all the time, you're texting and you got some water on there, and it's like it will not click the right spot because of the type of screen that is. These are not that type of screen. The touch screen is different, and so it's only pressure activated. And so what I wanted to do was take it out into the rain a little bit, and I wanted to see if that water on there would mess with me typing in the settings or not. So we had to figure out a different way to perform that test. So I figured we'd bring that thing indoors, and then what we would do is we would just pour some water on the front of it. So here's me pouring some water on the front of this thing. And what you can see here is I've just pretty much coated the entire front of that screen, and they are like splash resistant and stuff like that. And so you don't have to worry about getting water on them and whatnot. And you can see there, like, even though the entire front of the screen is covered in that water, it's pressure sensitive. And so it doesn't matter, I can still go in there. It's not going to be like inaccurate because it only relies on that pressure. So the next thing that we looked at was ease of use. Like, how easily can you actually train somebody on these? So I'm going to switch this camera view and talk about this. So I think you guys would agree that the rubber really hits the road with an IV pump when it comes to how easy this thing is to use. So what I wanted to do was see, like, how long does it actually take? So let's say I just primed my tubing, because I'm kind of taking that out of the equation a little bit. Like, all IV tubings are going to be pretty similar amount of time to prime. This one's probably a little bit easier because it has that straight line in there, so I don't have to press on anything or turn it any which way. It should just prime through like a normal piece of IV tubing. But where we want to look at the variables is actually putting this in the pump, turning it on, and getting an IV infusion ready to go. So let's say that I start right now and I turn this thing on, and I'm going to let it do its little thing. I'm not going to go super fast. I'm just going at a normal rate here. I open this thing up. This thing seats in pretty easily. That clicks in right there. I close that up. It's going to ask me. I'm going to go in on the screen here, focus in on that. Adults, yep, I accept. And let's just say I'm running a new infusion, and I just want to do a simple milliliters per hour infusion, right? So I'm just going to go to mLs real quick. It's not weight-based. It's just very simple. Milliliters per hour is a choice. That sounds like what I want. The volume to be infused, I just want to run in, or no, let's say I got 100 bags set up here. So let's say I've got 100 mLs, and I just want to run that over 10 minutes, like something super simple. 10 minutes, and then I just want to start that. So it's going to run at 600 mLs per hour. It's going to ask me if all those settings are correct. And then I'm just going to start the infusion. So when it's within 10 minutes of its continued, or 10 minutes of its completion, it'll let you know that your infusion is near the end, but it's already pumping. So that's about how long it takes to set up a milliliter per hour infusion. Just a simple bolus. You've got something, you just put in a 100 bag, and you want to go ahead and you want to start an infusion on the patient. So I'll put a timestamp in the video to show you how long that actually took, now that I'm a little bit familiar with the pump and I've been playing with it for a little bit. But let's say that we got something a little bit more complicated. So we're going to stop that one from running. I'm going to quit the infusion. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, what if I have something that I actually have to type in, like the patient's weight, I have to type in their kilograms, and I have to type in a concentration and stuff like that. So I could go into new infusion and just hit find. And this would have you can program in anything you want to. And so if I was doing like ketamine, it has like the 1-to-1 concentration in here, if that's what you choose to put in. A norepinephrine infusion, just stuff like that. You can program in your own concentrations and stuff, but I'm going to go from scratch real quick. So from putting this thing in to actually choosing all of your dosing and stuff like that, let's see about how long you can get through the menus if you know your drug dosages. And always double check them, obviously, with some kind of resource. I'm just putting this stuff in, assuming that I've double checked my dosing with my partner and a resource. So we come in here. Last time we hit that milliliters per hour. This time we're going to come in and we're going to hit dose calculation. So I want to figure out, okay, my propofol, that's like 10 milligrams per ml. So I'm going to hit milligrams per ml. I'm just going to hit 10. That's going to give me my concentration, totally weight-based. And so I'm going to say my patient weighs 80 kilograms. And then we come in here and we just have to pick one. So it doesn't know what medication we're infusing, so we got to be a little bit smart here. Mics per kilo per minute is what we want for a propofol infusion. And then I'm just going to come in here and hit my dose. Let's say we're running at 50 mics per minute, and I've got like 200 of propofol left. I don't have to hit the time because it calculates that one for me automatically. So when I come in here, it's going to say, is this the dose you want? Is this your total volume to be infused? All that stuff. Is this your patient's weight? And I confirm all that stuff, and then it's just gonna give me one last option to start there. And so when I come to this screen here, it's gonna show me how many mics per kilogram per minute I'm running in. Up here, it's gonna be my milliliters per hour. And then over here, it's going to be the same thing as the volume infusion, where I had like volume to be infused and then volume infused / total. And then it'll even tell me how much time I have left on that propofol. Now, if I wanted to adjust the dose or run a bolus or something like that, I can just hit this dose rate right here, which is right on the screen. So literally just whatever you want to edit. You know, if I switched out the bottle of propofol or something like that, I could come in here and I could change my volume to be infused, or I could just come over here and I could hit this dose. And let's say, you know, I don't quite need that much. I'm going down to 40. This will change you from 50 to 40. Is that okay? Press confirm to start. And then so now that changed you can see my dose changed and my milliliters per hour changed. You can request a pause, paused, quit infusion, and then that brings you right back to my home screen. You can also do preset programs in here, which are pretty easy. So that bolus infusion that I did was actually programmed in here already. So I could have just so from this home screen, let me just exit this. From this home screen, like imagine I give a lot of medications, you know, in a 100 bag over 10 minutes. It's pretty common, right? I can just go to preset programs, bolus infusion. I have 600, it's going to run at 600, run that 100 mLs over, and I can just start it just like that. I don't have to type in anything, and then it'll let me know every time. Let's say I would have started at 20 minutes. When it gets to 10 minutes, it would have showed me that I was almost complete with my infusion. So there's a lot of different ways to do it in here, and the person programming the pump has a lot of leeway with what kind of drugs they actually want to put in here, what kind of preset programs you want to run. You can repeat a last infusion, and pretty much all the options are there, and everything is in plain text. So it should be easy really for anybody to just pick up. One of the people, I've been asking people who use this pump, like, what kind of issues you have with it. And a lot of the providers, like if they run in a mixed system where you have like a paramedic and maybe an EMT who doesn't, use infusions a lot, they're like, I can teach my partner who has no experience with IV pumps how to use it very quickly. And so that's definitely something that's very attractive about it. So let's say that you do want to use that drug library. So you go into new infusion and you can search for stuff. Like if I want like norepinephrine, I could click N, find. It'll come up with everything with N. That's pretty simple. Otherwise, you just come in here, new infusion. I can just hit find on the bottom right and then scroll through whatever I have. So I don't have very many programmed in here right now, but let's say that I just wanted an epinephrine infusion. Epinephrine infusion, I can program in different concentrations here. This one is a 1,000 mics or 1 milligram in 250. So you take a milligram, put it in a 250 bag. My total volume to be infused, like I said, I put it in a 250 bag. And then I'm going to come in here and just say dose rate. I want to run that at 5 micrograms per minute. And then that's literally all I have to do. So it'll just confirm everything here. You hit next. That's the concentration that I want. And I hit start and I'm done. So alternatively, if you had programmed that drug in to tell it that it's a mics per kilo per minute, it would give me another option then that says like, hey, how much does the patient weigh? And so you just have one more parameter that you put in there. And so that's the only difference between, this one's programmed in for mics per minute, but you may choose to do something mics per kilo per minute, or have two options like an epi weight base and an epi non-weight base for a flat infusion, or something that is judged by weight. And I really did find too that, when I first picked these things up, I mean, I'm used to using like Med System 3 pumps and stuff like that. I don't have any experience with a whole lot of different types of pumps. I've never touched these things before. But when I got them first in the mail, and I opened them up, I turned it on, I grab a IV set, I was able to get them to work just within a couple minutes of playing around with them, because everything is like that plain text. You can kind of just see exactly where you need to put those settings in. And so I'm pretty confident that if you handed this to anybody that can read and do math, even if they really can't do math because they don't do it for you, but I'm pretty confident that within a couple minutes, even if they had zero training on it, they would be able to get an infusion going at an accurate rate. Should you do that? No. Could somebody do that by just picking this thing up? Yeah, I'm pretty confident that they could. So the other thing that people asked because I put this post on Facebook, I was like, what do you guys think that we should do to test this thing? Is it paramedic proof, right? Is it EMS proof? And people were like, see how well it drops and everything. And I had a meeting with the people who sent us the pump from Sapphire, and I'm like, can I drop this thing? Like, am I allowed to do that? And they're like, oh yeah, go ahead. It's not a big deal. They're like, we'll go to conferences and stuff, and we'll roll it like a bowling ball down the lane and stuff, down the pathway and whatnot. And so I'm like, okay, and I'm like nervous about dropping these things and stuff. So I took it to the living room and I filmed some slow motion here, and it did really well. In fact, this is the one that I was dropping right here, and the corners, there's no dents or anything on the corners. What I did notice is that sometimes this door would pop open like that, but that doesn't stop it from pumping, and so you can just go like that and close it again. If it kind of hits it just right, it can kind of like press down on this little area here and pop it open. But that was the worst that happened to it. I probably dropped this thing before I started recording. I probably did it like another 5, 6, 7 times. And just to kind of see what would happen. And it never stopped. It never stopped pumping. It never gave me any error messages. The only thing that would happen, and like I said, is you'll see it in the slow motion videos too, is sometimes the door pops open and it sometimes even pops back shut, depending on what side it falls on and stuff. The end of the extension set bent a little bit, but it never became an issue. Like I can see that it bent the plasticky rubber kind of stuff on the end of this a little bit, but it never gave me a pumping issue. It's not occluded or anything like that. And I used the same pump, the same tubing, and just continuously dropped it. It's drop tested from 1 meter. And so that's how far that I was using it. So I'm gonna round out with showing you guys this drop test video. But I wanted to say, if you guys want more details on this thing, go and check out the blog. I go into a little bit more of how I did the accuracy testing, how I did the battery testing, the general like user experience with this thing, and going into some other details about it. I have to say though, we've really enjoyed using them, and seems like a great pump. So I'm gonna send you guys off with a special little video from Tyler. Enjoy, guys. I'll see you next time.
Well, she's a good girl, got her first job as a medic, running transfers from the local ED. She's a good girl, never broke any equipment except for one day when she dropped the IV pump. It was a long day, running back-to-back transfers. She hadn't eaten a thing all day, and then that one call, her hands were kinda shaking. Yeah, that one call, she couldn't hold on, and the IV pump went free. A free falling. Yeah, we all saw it go free. A free falling.